Yesterday, I talked about skills for living that St Thomas calls the moral virtues. One question that may have occurred to you, though I hinted at an answer, is how do I develop the moral virtues? One answer is to be had by thinking about the analogy that I drew between virtues and skills at playing a sport. Just as we can acquire skills at playing a sport by practice, so we can practice at being just or having good sense. There's another way that St Thomas talks about, which is that God can give us moral virtues as a gift. One of the ways in which God can grace us is to infuse us with the moral virtues, we say. St Thomas thinks we can understand the gifts that St Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 13, the gifts of faith, hope, and love, as being a bit like moral virtues. St Thomas calls them the theological virtues. To think of faith, hope, and love as skills isn't quite right. For one thing, they cannot be developed by us in any way, whether practice or anything else. St Thomas thinks they can only be infused in us by God, pure gifts of grace. That's one reason for calling them theological. They can only come from God. But they're a bit like the moral virtues in that once God has given them to us, they become in us like parts of our own character, enabling us to act well. We need to be a bit careful because in each case, with faith, hope, and love, we use the same word for a few different things. But in this talk, we're interested in the virtues of faith, hope, and love, the gifts that God has given us that enable us to live the Christian life. And that's another reason they're called theological, because they direct us to God. When we talk about faith, we could mean the act of faith, when we believe God in the things that He has revealed. What we mean by the virtue of faith is the gift of God which strengthens our minds and our wills to hold fast to the things of faith. Faith is partly to do with our minds, because we believe the things of faith in a way that's a little bit like knowing. This believing is based not on evidence of the usual kind, but on what the letter to the Hebrews calls the evidence of things not seen. And that makes it also a matter of our wills. We have to choose to trust God in those things which He has revealed. So God gives us a gift which enlarges our ability to believe, to enable us to hold fast to things which are beyond the minds of human beings, and to strengthen our wills to trust God. The word hope can be used to talk about an emotion, as when I say I have hope for the future, or I have hope that I will be able to finish a project. The emotion, St Thomas thinks, is about a future goal which is hard to get to, but which I believe I am capable of achieving. The theological virtue of hope is the gift by which God raises our minds to Him, so that we see Him as our ultimate goal. Life with God isn't, of course, possible for us humans unless God help us. So the virtue of hope is about trusting that with God's help we can make it to heaven. By God's gift, we come to see heaven, life with God, as the goal of our lives, and we come to trust that with God's help we can get there. The greatest of the three theological virtues, as St Paul tells us already, is love. We use the word love for so many different things that we have to be clear what we're talking about here. St Thomas thinks the virtue of love is a gift which gives us a share in the very life of God. God shares His own love with us. That makes us friends of God. The theological virtue of love, then, is a special kind of friendship with God. It's amazing that friendship with God is even possible, because friendship always requires an equality between the friends. Anything that destroys equality destroys friendship. By the way, that is why friends should not lend friends money. It's not just that they might fight over the repayments, it's that the whole relationship of debtor and creditor is unequal and will undermine the friendship. Instead, if your friends need money, give it to them without thinking of repayment. But if inequality undermines friendship, how can God be friends with his creatures? Well, only by the most amazing gift of love, this share in his own life, which raises us up to be his friends. Tomorrow I want to talk about the fact that humans have broken their relationship with God in the act that we call sin, and the amazing thing that God did in Jesus to restore the possibility that humans can be his friends.